Podcasts have seen a huge amount of growth over the last few years, with over 2 million new podcasts having been created since the start of 2020. But even with the massive increase in content out there, high-quality podcasts focused on the commercial real estate industry specifically are still pretty few and far between, especially if you're looking for more high-level information on the institutional side of the business. So whether you're trying to break into the industry for the first time and want to make sure you can speak the language of commercial real estate during interviews, or if you're already working in commercial real estate and just trying to stay up to date with what's happening in the market, in this video we'll break down my top 5 favorite commercial real estate podcasts, why I like each of these, and how these might be able to help you at different stages of your career. So to start this video out, I want to highlight the oldest podcast on this list by a really wide margin, and this is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. This podcast is hosted by Michael Bull, who's run his own successful brokerage firm for over 25 years, and with more than 700 episodes dating all the way back to 2010, it's really hard to beat the content library that this show has produced. And what I really like about this podcast is that a lot of their guests are researchers first and foremost and hold leadership roles within some of the biggest companies in that space, with guests on the show over the last few months, including the Director of Research and Analysis at RealPage, the Real Estate Solutions Leader at Deloitte, a Senior Economist at Moody's Analytics, and a partner at PwC's Financial Markets and Real Estate Group. And what I find even more helpful about these interviews is that these people will often come onto the show to highlight a report they've recently released on a specific part of the commercial real estate market. And in many cases, these reports are also available to the public, meaning that you can go to these companies' websites and download these for free. New episodes of this show are released weekly, but if you need to get up to speed on what's happening in the industry quickly, they have a huge existing content library to sift through, so this can be a great resource to follow regardless of how much industry experience you currently have. Now, the next podcast I want to highlight is the Trepwire podcast, and this is by far the most technical and data-heavy show on this entire list. In case you're not familiar with this company, Trep is one of the biggest data and analytics providers for commercial mortgage-backed securities and has some of the most in-depth research available on loan performance tracking throughout the entire industry. And the Trepwire podcast covers topics like loan performance data, macro trends affecting different property types, major transactions in the market, and distress in the industry overall. And what I like about this show is that instead of featuring guests that might have a personal agenda or might be trying to promote their own platform on a show, the majority of Trepwire episodes are exclusively run by internal Trep team members that are directly connected to the research. Now, because this podcast is so technical, these episodes can be pretty intimidating to listen to if you're completely new to the industry, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend starting here if you have no real estate experience. However, on that same note, where this podcast can be really helpful, even if you aren't well versed in the industry, is when it comes to commercial real estate terminology. And when you listen to this, it really feels like you're sitting in a room with a group of very smart people with a lot of industry experience. This will allow you to naturally pick up on a lot of the jargon and buzzwords that are used within commercial real estate before you're expected to know these things, which can help you hit the ground running when you do land a job, or be prepared for technical questions that might come up when you're interviewing for open positions. And if you're already working in the industry right now, this podcast can be a great resource to stay up to date with what's happening across different industry sectors and how the state of the capital markets is impacting this industry overall. And with 1 to 2 episodes released every single week, this is a great resource to get a regular dose of current events on your morning or evening commute. Now, the next podcast I want to highlight here is the Walker Webcast, which is hosted by the CEO of Walker & Dunlop, Willie Walker. Walker & Dunlop is one of the fastest growing commercial real estate brokerage and advisory firms in the US. And what I love about this podcast is that the guests on this show are some of the most prominent leaders throughout the entire industry that you typically wouldn't be able to hear from in long form content. Recent episodes of the Walker Webcast have featured the CEO of Avalon Bay, one of the largest publicly traded REITs in the world, the CEO of Pulte Group, one of the largest home builders in the United States, and even the president and CEO of Fannie Mae, and all of these people have really unique insights into different parts of the industry. What I also like about this podcast is that Willie Walker himself tends to be extremely well prepared for these episodes and asks really good questions to his guests. And regardless of whether you're new to the industry or an experienced commercial real estate professional, there's very likely something you can take away from listening to this show. Now, the next podcast I want to highlight here is put together by the largest commercial real estate firm in the world, and this is CBRE's The Weekly Take. This show is hosted by Spencer Levy, who's the Global Chief Client Officer at CBRE, and features commercial real estate professionals from a variety of different regions across the US, and often zooms in on one specific market or trend that's relevant to the industry at the time. Recent episodes of this show have covered topics like private capital funding from family offices, how insurance costs are changing within the industry, and even why Cleveland has become the leader in office conversions among any city in the US, and in a business that's really fragmented and tends to have a lot of specialists in different industry sectors. These types of market-specific insights are really helpful to hear. This podcast even has a handful of episodes on building a career in commercial real estate, which will allow you to hear the perspectives of some of the most successful people in this industry. And because this podcast tends to shy away from overly technical content, this is often a very easy listen, regardless of how much industry experience you have. Now, the last podcast I want to highlight here is the newest and the least consistent on this list, but still very much worth listening to. And this is the Recap Podcast with Brandon Roth. What I really like about this podcast is that unlike the other 4 podcasts on this list that are hosted by research professionals or company CEOs, Brandon is actively working on deals on a day-to-day basis as a managing director for institutional property advisors, helping clients find debt and equity capital to fund their transactions. What I also like about this podcast is that in the handful of episodes that have been released, each of these has featured an expert in a very specific part of the industry, with topics including agency lending, ground lease financing, and life company investment strategies. And even though Brandon has a lot of experience in the industry himself, he'll often make sure to pause and ask his guests to explain certain concepts to help newer investors catch up and follow the conversation. So if you're trying to level up in this industry or just get your start in the commercial real estate business, these are the 5 podcasts I'd recommend following in 2025. And if you want to make sure you have the technical skills you'll need to land a job in this industry, make sure to check out our all-in-one membership training platform, Breaking a CRE Academy. A membership to the Academy will give you instant access to over 120 hours of video training on real estate financial modeling and analysis. You'll get access to hundreds of practice Excel interview exam questions, sample acquisition case studies, and you'll also get access to the Breaking a CRE Analyst Certification exam, which covers topics like real estate pro forma and development modeling, commercial real estate lease modeling, equity waterfall modeling, and many other real estate financial analysis concepts that will help you prove to employers that you have what it takes to tackle the responsibilities of an analyst or associate at a top real estate firm. And if you want to see more videos on the channel on commercial real estate news sources or other real estate content worth following online, make sure to hit the like button and let me know. And let me know in the comments if there are any other real estate podcasts that you listen to regularly that you think should have made this list. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you found this helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to see more videos like this every single week. And I'll see you in the next video.